Welcome to the podcast called The Battle for African Agriculture, where we explore the intersection of food, power, and sovereignty in Africa and beyond. I'm your host, Million Belay, and today I'm honored to speak with one of the most influential environmental voices of our time, Nnimmo Bassey. Nnimmo is a Nigerian architect, a writer, a poet, and one of Africa's most prominent environmental justice advocates. He has been at the forefront of resisting oil extraction, land grabs, and toxic oil pollution through his leadership at Health of Mother Earth Foundation. He's also a former chair of Friends of the Earth International and was named one of the Time magazine's Hero of the Environment. His voice is critical in understanding the deep entanglements between colonial legacies, modern technologies, and the fight for African food sovereignty. By the way, Nnimmo, I do remember that we started AFSA together. You are
Right,
one of the
right.
founders of AFSA. Today, we'll be talking about how GMOs and the global push for biotechnology are part of a broader pattern of neocolonialism, and how African can claim autonomy over its food and seeds. Nnimmo, let's begin with you. The first time I met you, I remember you gave me a book on architecture. And I must confess that I didn't read it for a long time. And one time I found it on my library, Nnimmo in architecture, and I read it. I was fascinated. How
Must
did
be
you move? Yeah,
that must
I,
be the book on living houses.
yes, yes, and how you plan it, how you construct it, how you do that, how you do this. And that time I was also planning to construct a house, and I found it very, very useful. So thank you very much for your generosity. Every time we meet, and you gave me also quite recently your book on poems. The very beautiful poems there, and I remember you reading us poems also in our meetings. Thanks for a generous side of your life, huh? And welcome to my podcast, Nnimmo.
Really a big pleasure to be on this show with you today.
So, Nnimmo, let's begin with you. What experience or turning points shaped your commitment to environment and food justice?
Well, it's a long story, Million, because I started out as I was growing up at a time when Africa was fighting for political independence on many fronts. We had the liberation struggles in Mozambique, in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, South Africa
Mm,
against apartheid, uh, Angola and the rest. And then I've been following very closely liberation fighters like Amilcar Cabral and the rest who lost their lives in the process of fighting
mm,
for the liberation of Africa. Now, from there, as a young adult, I went into the mainstream human rights struggle
mm,
and the fights against military dictatorship in Nigeria, my country.
mm,
It was while fighting for, during the fight for human rights in terms of better prison conditions, the fact that they shouldn't incarcerate somebody without trial, children should not be in prison and all that. I found that there was a major assault on the liberties of Africans to have a
mm,
clean environment to start with, that was pure environmental justice. And
mm,
then I found also along the line that this struggle was not just about environmental pollution, was also about biodiversity pollution
mm,
and the
mm,
fact that we're losing our foods. We're
mm,
losing our foods because of monoculture ideas
mm,
presented and built into our political system by colonialism
mm,
and all
mm,
that. So this is where I really say, and then of course the struggle of Malawi against GMOs in the
mm.
early 2000s, I think 2002 or thereabout.
Yeah,
That really nailed it for me. Yeah,
yeah, Malawi and Zambia too. And I remember also campaigning while I was in South Africa.
yeah, yes,
That established a well
yes. I think that
sustainable.
was Zambia.
Yeah, the
It's,
well established sustainable
it's one of
development.
one of the
Yeah,
two.
Zambia. Yeah, it was in Malawi too. Yeah. Um, how do you personally define neocolonialism in the context of agriculture and food systems?
Um, well, maybe I would not give a direct definition, but let me just explain what colonialism was doing to our food system.
Yeah, yeah,
Colonialism was all about extracting resources from one
mm.
region and taking back to the home country of the colonialists.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
And everything in the colony was up for plunder, for
Mm,
transformation, for grabbing.
mm,
And in terms of agriculture, because we had good soils and a variety of species that was needed
mm,
for industry in the global north, in the colonizing powers,
mm,
they now basically attacked our food system
mm,
by
mm,
promoting plantation agriculture.
mm,
So rather than people growing crops for food,
mm,
they were now growing crops for cash. And that idea of cash cropping has been embedded in the DNA of
mm,
neocolonial leaders.
mm,
And
mm,
so colonialism may have ended, but neocolonialism continues even in our food
mm,
system,
mm,
in agriculture, because
mm,
those things that were not focused to help us to meet our needs,
mm.
but to meet somebody else's need is what
Yeah.
is still being promoted. And
Mm,
this is why we still have industrial agriculture, plantation agriculture. They go back to slavery
yeah.
because plantation agriculture was reinforced and cemented more or less by slavery.
Yeah.
And so our people were enslaved, but not in chains directly, but
Mm,
in terms of cropping for cash rather than cropping for the needs of our people. And
mm,
when you had these monocultures, plantations simply
mm,
destroy the ecosystem, destroy biodiversity, erodes what people need for food, took over land from people, converted our people to farm hands and laborers in the
mm,
plantations.
mm.
This is the way I would define colonialism in
Excellent.
agriculture,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
forcing people to lose their sovereignty over the way they produce their food, that they produce only for export or for the needs of others.
Excellent. I remember your speech during the youth meeting. I was fascinated. Nemo, I must tell you that that was one of your best speeches that I heard.
Oh,
And you talked
I
about
need a copy then.
culture and how culture is being eroded and the responsibility of the youth environment. So, what's culture for you, and how is neocolonialism eroding our culture?
Yeah, actually, you are right. This is something that have really occupied my imagination for a while now,
Mm,
because after campaigning, following strategies, different kinds of strategies for campaigning against the very oppressive system that we still operate on, I found that young people in particular they were not coming into the same framing that we grew up in.
yeah.
And this is because they've more or less lost, there's a lot of erosion of cultural roots.
Mm,
The culture is a way of life of the people. It's the totality of everything, our stories, our song, our books, our drama, our spirituality and everything. And, when, unless I just came to the conclusion, just like many other people have done, that unless you
mm,
come to terms with the fact that we must not allow everything that is us, everything that belongs to us to be taken as inferior to
mm,
something else. When you
mm,
everything that is important to us is negated, is
yeah,
ignored, and we have to imbibe new ways of doing
yeah,
things. We have
yeah,
to learn new tests, even new tests, new foods.
yeah,
We
yeah,
forget the stories behind it. We forget what food is. That food is not just something you open your mouth and throw it in.
yeah,
We're now looking at colors, and we're looking at uh, uniformity for packaging. And then, of course, we lose our mind. When you lose your culture, you've lost your mind. So it makes
yeah, exactly, yeah,
driving us over the cliff. And so
yeah,
recovering our culture means recovering our memory. Recovering our memory means recovering our taste for the foods that we eat,
yeah,
for the songs that we sing, for
yeah,
stories that we tell. This
yeah,
is what neocolonialism. If colonialism does not destroy your culture, or directly convert or distort our culture,
mm,
colonialism will not succeed. And they were
yeah,
successful because they subverted our culture and they
yeah,
overturned everything, including
yeah,
our foods.
yeah. Excellent. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about power, corporation, and GMOs. Huh? So many argue that about GMO feeding the world, and what's your response to that? Does it feed the world?
That's the myth. I think one of the ways that those who promote GMOs have really captured the imagination of politicians is the myth of technofiction, that
Mm,
technology is a silver bullet.
mm,
And they would not even admit that anything that is not found in nature is artificial.
mm,
So GMOs are clearly artificial crops or
mm,
artificial animals or fishes.
mm,
And when when we eat those things that are artificial, alien to nature, they would also be alien to our bodies, and they could bring
mm,
some kind of reactions, they're alien to
mm,
environment. And so technology has been used, there's a fetish, more or less.
mm, mm,
Fetish that whatever is technological is the best and must be accepted.
mm,
This
mm.
is why the whole idea has been difficult to eradicate, but we try in our campaigns to ensure that people get to know that technology cannot solve all problems.
Yeah,
The fact that you have an atomic bomb does not mean that you go about exploding bombs everywhere you go. Even where there's a war. And
mm,
so the
mm,
technology may be good for some uses, but not in agriculture. It's a no,
mm,
no, no. Doesn't
mm,
just make sense because the crops, even
mm.
by the research of those who promote it, they don't necessarily yield better than conventional or
No,
natural
yeah,
variety.
exactly.
They don't support our own food system. They don't support the way
Mm,
we grow crops.
mm,
We deal with our people in Africa, deal with mixed cropping.
yeah,
We don't just grow only one variety over
mm,
hectares or
mm,
whole village everywhere. I mean, what GMOs promote what has been termed green deserts,
mm,
not
mm,
not the kind of things that you
mm,
crops and environment that you find in nature. And they
mm.
also promote the use of chemicals, more chemicals than
Yeah,
more chemicals.
yeah,
Yeah, in
definitely.
terms of, for example, the crops that are designed to be herbicide tolerant. You are
Yeah,
just saying this crop is designed to be doused with this chemical. And the
yeah,
same company producing the seed that is producing the chemical,
yeah,
and our farmers don't even know that they have to wear space suits, kind of personal
yeah,
protective dresses and equipment
mm,
to be able
mm,
to use those things. And so
yeah,
it's a double jeopardy for our farmers, destroying our
mm,
environment and destroying the farmers themselves
mm,
who apply these chemicals. They don't produce more, and some of the GMOs are designed to kill pests,
yeah,
so-called to kill pests. And so those GMOs are actually pesticides. And
yeah,
nobody really wants to eat a
understand.
pesticide.
Yeah,
So that people are forced to eat pesticides. And then
yeah,
again, I found this in Nigeria, that when the Nigerian Biosafety Management Agency
mm,
approved genetically engineered cowpea, which
mm,
we call beans, and it's
mm,
one of the staple crops. And Nigeria is one of the centers of origin of this variety, and it's
mm.
a crime to genetically engineer any variety at the center of origin of
Yeah,
that crop.
yeah, yeah,
Now, we asked the farmers did what the kind of variety did they plant? Were they told what these varieties were? And the
mm,
farmer said, well, they were told that these are improved varieties.
mm,
I mean, farmers will always want to have improved varieties, but they were not
mm,
told how. How were they
mm,
improved? Who improved
yeah,
them? By what method? And then
mm,
when we asked them, why didn't you tell the farmers that these are GMOs? They said, well, they had to explain it the best way the farmers could understand. So you can't explain a technology and you want the people to use that technology. I think
mm.
this is absolutely
It's a crime,
unacceptable.
yeah. Mm, mm.
It is, it
I
is.
totally excuse you. Let's talk about corporate power, companies like Monsanto, Bayer. What kind of power are they exercising in African food system?
Well, corporate capture, corporate power is something that with corporate globalization is very difficult to, one, we can't ignore it. And they are really having tremendous power
mm,
over the political system.
mm,
And this is because they have the ears of
mm,
top level politicians.
mm, mm,
Once politicians are elected into office,
mm,
these big corporations, leaders of these corporations are the first to pay so-called corporate, what do they call it, courtesy visits.
mm,
They're the ones who take their glossy brochures to the politicians, and they're the
mm,
ones who say, well, poor small-scale farmers can't feed anybody; they can't feed themselves. And then
mhm,
Africans are poor, Africans are hungry, Africans are malnourished. Our lands are not productive, so you have to use artificial fertilizers. They will
mm,
not send it about organic fertilizers and all that.
mm.
So the corporate influence of corporate agri-based is really very heavy on the continent. And they
Yeah.
point at examples of, they will point at example without looking at the context.
Mm,
What are the people in even the territories where these massive corporations operate? How are they responding to them?
mm,
And what is the relationship with agriculture?
mm,
As one of our big time scientific thinkers has said, in Africa, agriculture is not just considered as business, it's a way of life.
mm,
Whereas in some other cultures,
mm,
agriculture is business.
mm.
It is not so for us, and we have to recognize that this is the fact.
Yeah, exactly. So related to that, how are international trade agreements and aid policies driving GMO adoption across the continent?
Um, you know, Million, this is a big issue, big problem.
Mm, mm,
We're having, food aid. Some people think it's free. Food aid is often not free.
mm,
But when it's
mm,
presented as aid, everybody says,
mm,
okay, this is food aid, and we're the ones
mm,
paying. It's a
mm,
way of subsidizing farming somewhere else
mm. Yeah.
and just buying whatever they
Mm,
throw at us because it's called food aid.
mm,
But apart from that, food aid is promoting GMOs in the sense that where there is a crisis, our people, many of our politicians and government don't bother to even ask the question, what kind of seed are you giving us?
mm, mm,
So many African countries have been ambushed to plant GMOs without even knowing. In northeastern Nigeria, over the past decade, thousands of farmers have been killed by
mm, mm,
terrorists
mm,
acting under different guises. A lot of farmlands have been destroyed.
mm,
Harvests have been destroyed. Harvests have been destroyed. When you have terrorists who just target farms, they go to farms, destroy the farm, destroy the harvest, kill the farmers, kill the fisher folks. It's become very troubling, and
very.
millions of people, over 3.5
Mm,
million Nigerians,
mm,
have been displaced by this kind of violence,
mm,
but in north central and northeastern Nigeria. And aid agencies provide seeds to
mm,
these displaced persons to
mm,
grow crops. And once
mm,
I asked a government official, have you tested these seeds? Have you examined what seeds you are giving to the farmers?
mm,
And they said, no, they don't. Because
mm,
it's a crisis, an emergency, any kind of seed is thrown at the farmers. And I believe that by the time we wake up, a lot of harm would have been done to our
mm,
food system. So the
mm,
guys behind the clouds of battle, the smoke of battle, so to speak,
mm,
GMOs are being sneaked in. And
mm,
because also our borders are not so, borders are colonial borders.
mm.
Our villages were divided by arbitrary lines drawn at the Berlin
Obviously, yeah.
Conference in
Mm, mm,
1884. And so if you approve GMOs in Nigeria, it's certainly going to go to Niger Republic, it's going to Benin, it's going to Cameroon. They don't
yeah,
need
yeah,
to approve
obviously,
it, it's going to close it.
yeah, yeah,
So, so, yeah, so, international free trade agreements allow movement of goods without much restriction. It's also
yeah.
another way, certainly, of of getting GMOs across borders without considering what the rules are, what the biosafety protocol requires, and all that.
Mm,
So these are
mm,
big challenges we have,
mm.
and it's something that we have to tackle.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to come to the biosafety laws, but I just wanted to, my reflection. These aids, especially food aids, are the mechanisms for companies to change the food habits of people. I remember, when I was a child, we had a lot of problem in Ethiopia, as you know, and that's when rice came to Ethiopia. We never had rice.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
rice is now one of the foods, that it's not staple as that, but it's a staple food in Ethiopia. The eating of rice has increased. So in so many parts of the world, when you have a problem, they come in and they give you aid, and that's one of the ways of changing the food culture of the country. And the country gets used to a particular kind of food, and when that crisis is averted, when the crisis is gone, the people want to eat that food. So it's just creating a market, a continuous and sustainable market for themselves. Anyway, in your view, how does the push for biosafety law reforms and the weakening of seed laws reflect neocolonial dynamics?
Well, again, we go back to, well, I fully agree with you about food aids, um, supplanting our food culture, food taste,
Mm,
and what is available and what people really want,
yeah.
what people easily want. Because, food aid comes highly subsidized, it's cheap, sometimes it's free, and then
Mm,
people cultivate it. Yes, I remember during the Nigerian Civil War, there were
mm,
certain, the Civil War completely altered. Civil War in Nigeria happened in 1967 to 1970 to 1970. And I was a little child and a refugee that period, my parents.
mm,
And we had to depend on food aid. And
mm,
I do know that food aid completely, to a large extent, changed the food culture of
mhm,
people who lived in the zone that was known as Biafra in those days.
mm,
The certain kind of crops that
mm,
the things that people would not readily accept now became
mm,
acceptable. And what was the
mm.
prime crops that people wanted to cultivate and to consume suddenly began to disappear.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a big issue. And I
Mm,
fully agree with that analysis.
mm. Yeah, let me repeat a quick. In your view, how does a push for biosafety law reforms
Yes.
and the weakening of seed laws reflect neocolonial dynamics?
Yes, thank you for repeating that question. I flew off to play
Yeah,
football instead of
because
playing hockey.
no,
Instead of
it
playing
was a
cricket.
sensitive issue, understandable. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that when we had the Organization for African Unity, OAU, before the current formation that we have, the African Union,
Mm-hmm.
there was the African Model Law on biosafety. It was a very strict model
Mm,
that countries were supposed to model their biosafety laws on. And the centerpiece was precautionary principle.
mm,
And of course, to defend, our leaders were really very keen defending the African biodiversity.
mm,
But nowadays, we are very weak reference to that law. It's been watered down,
mm,
and proponents of GMOs have undue influence on even our continental bodies, on
mm,
governance structures. And they're
mm,
pushing in
mm,
GMOs and applauding nations who weak biosafety laws.
mm,
And, I remember we've seen what happened in Uganda when in the parliament, when in the biosafety law, and the president said that there has to be strict liability. And then
mm.
everybody said, well, you're trying to stifle science. You don't allow
Yeah,
us to,
yeah,
to
yeah.
experiment, to do
Mm,
things. How can you bring an issue of strict
mm,
liability? But if you're giving me a novel food, something that is not part of my culture,
mm,
something that has about safety implications. The very fact
mm,
that this thing is classified as something that has been regulated under
mm.
biosafety means that's a safety issue.
Yeah.
And so weak laws allow them. The Nigerian
Mm,
biosafety law requires that there should be labeling. For those who bring in GMOs, I say that you cannot label because of our
mm,
socio-economic system, because of
mm,
the informal way we share foods, we sell foods. You can't really label what you're selling by
mm,
the roadside.
mm.
Put a signpost say I'm selling GMO
Yeah.
pack or something. Uh,
Mm,
uh, and so if you have a law and you are flouting that law, it means the criminal food system
mm,
that we're operating.
mm.
And so we really need to, the colonialism, sometimes people say, well, you talk too much about colonialism, that was in the
Hmm.
past. But colonialism is alive and well.
Yeah,
It's alive and
exactly.
well in many different ways. We're
Yeah,
still having the undue influence and what is also known as coloniality, coloniality
yeah.
of power, coloniality of knowledge, so
Mm,
many difference of colonial mentality, so to speak,
yeah.
that is ingrained.
Mm,
It's just like when a country has been under military rule, you find that politicians who succeed them behave
mm,
like military governors,
mm,
military presidents.
mm,
The same thing with those who took over from colonialism, behave like
mm.
colonial masters.
Yeah.
Exactly, and taking
Mm,
instructions from the king or the queen or whoever colonized the territory.
mm,
And so it is very heavy. Is something that needs to be tackled openly and forcefully. I mean
yeah.
forcefully, I mean vigorously, because
Yeah.
unless we eliminate the coloniality in our various spheres, then
Mm,
colonialism will persist, and that
mm,
is a big problem.
mm. As I speak to you, Nemo, I think yesterday or today, Bill Gates was given the highest honor, Medal of Honor by the Ethiopian government. I think it was yesterday, and today he's also honored at the African Union. Um, Bill Gates created or started or whatever in his heavily funding Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa. And what is Agra best doing? Changing our laws and regulations, so that it is appropriate, it's convenient for outside actors to operate in Africa. And the way they have influenced also the CADA process, the CADA. It was fully funded by Agra. Yeah, and then as you said, the biosafety regulations in our countries, the seed laws in our countries are changed in left and right by the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa. So they are coming in so many ways, and as you said, they don't want a strict biosafety law, and they are watering our biosafety laws in left and right. Thank you very much. Um, so let's talk about resistance and alternatives. What forms of resistance are you seeing from farmers, civil society, and communities in Africa?
Thank you, Million. The interesting thing and the thing that really gives us hope, I
Mm.
guess you may want to ask me what gives you hope in this struggle. What gives us hope is the resilience.
Mm,
We're
mm,
trying to build a resilience, biodiversity,
mm,
resilient culture, a
mm,
resilient farming and agricultural
mm,
system. But it
mm,
starts with resilient farmers.
mm, mm,
And, our, our farmers are truly gathering. There's
mm,
a growing movement of farmers on the continent who are determined to protect our seeds.
mm,
And they are, saving seeds, sharing seeds, having some countries having seed fairs, sharing their stories, sharing experiences. In
mm,
Nigeria, we'll be having a series of workshops and trainings on the farm demonstrations, so
mm,
that farmers can see that they can actually run autonomous farming
mm,
processes
mm,
without having to depend on artificial fertilizers and other chemicals. And they've
mm.
seen the output. So it's about the resistance is about not just about the stories, advocacy, and also practical demonstration
Yeah.
of the superior system. And
Mm,
so without having to say much, our farmers are seeing clearly
mhm,
that, this kind of alternative farming system is far more superior to what they've been forced to adopt by
yeah.
using technofixes or presenting technology as a silver bullet,
Mm,
talking about seeds that are being imported and not the ones uh, that the people know about. So these are the resistance is on the ground, and I believe that when resistance is rooted in reality and in culture, it's
mm.
very hard to uproot such systems.
Exactly. And thank you very much. Could you speak about pharmacy systems and why protecting them is not only a technical issue but a political and cultural one?
Um, I feel like telling you a story about
Please.
um, some
He's so
years
good in
back.
that.
Some years back, I went to visit Yakuba Sawadogo of blessed memory in
Mhm,
Burkina Faso,
mhm,
and he had developed a system, not really developed, used a system of a traditional technology, desire method
mhm,
of of improving the health of the soils. And by so doing, he was able to grow the thickest forest in the Sahel, in the
mhm,
Burkina Faso zone.
mhm,
And when I visited, it showed me, I could see the patience. It takes patience to grow a forest in a
mhm.
dry, arid territory. So he was
Uh,
showing me trees between the cracks of rocks I could not see with my naked eyes, even with my
mhm,
glasses. And he was telling me this tree is 2 years old, this one is this, that, and I couldn't see them. But I
mhm,
could see that this man has spent a lot of energy and
mhm,
love.
mhm,
Yes, praise Lord. It's like the trees knew him. The birds were
mhm,
coming to his farm, bringing seeds
mhm,
from everywhere
mhm,
because he had
mhm,
pots of water placed on top of trees,
mhm,
on tree
mhm,
branches. So birds
mhm,
knew they could come there to have a drink, and they were
mhm,
bringing seeds. So this was the most biodiverse area. And you
mhm,
know, the farmer seed system is about building the diversity of seeds
mhm,
that are native or indigenous to
mhm,
any region,
mhm,
to recover the erosion that has occurred over the years
mhm,
by dependence on imported seeds or seeds
mhm,
that are coming from industry.
mhm,
And I found this very interesting because also
mhm,
when I spoke with farmers in that area, one thing they told me that I've not forgotten is that
mhm,
before they used to have struggles over soils and lands, but now
mhm,
they can grow crops on any kind of soil because if they
mhm,
get the land, they're going to improve the health of the soil
mhm,
by adding adding,
mhm,
I was going to say artificial, but not artificial, adding um, organic fertilizers and manure, and
mhm.
of course, tapping whatever little rain falls in that area. So sharing of technologies, and technology doesn't have to be imported or something
Yeah,
developed in
I
the
mean,
laboratory.
obviously, yeah.
You know, sharing of original technologies, sharing of seeds, sharing of stories by farmers,
Mm,
development of seed banks. These are the ways to build resilience, and this is what our farmers are waking up and they're doing. They'll be strong. They don't have the support. This is
mm,
a big challenge that we have.
mm,
Infrastructure
mm,
is a support.
mm,
So to even have the roads to get to the farms. So
mm,
farmers produce the seeds, produce the food crops, but they don't have good access to markets.
mm,
And
mm.
so, and so the middlemen are the ones who are getting rich while the farmers remain
Exactly,
poor.
exactly, yeah.
And this is a big problem. This is a big
Mm,
problem.
mm,
Storage facilities, processing facilities,
mm,
these are the areas that we need investment in research
mm,
and in production.
mm.
But our systems are being, universities and research centers are being called centers of excellence when they receive funds from AGRA, from Bill Gates, or
Yeah,
from
yeah.
somebody else. And
Mm,
this is the center of excellence. But the real excellence is in
mm.
the struggles of the local farmers in the field who don't need
Exactly,
support.
exactly,
It's a
exactly.
big,
With little
big issue.
support, what they do with little support is astounding. So let's
Mm.
talk about agroecology. What role does agroecology play in countering the neocolonial logic embedded in industrial agriculture and GMOs?
I think agroecology provides a solution that the industry and promoters of
Mm,
GMOs, whether GMO 101 or 2.0,
mm.
uh, gene drive and all that, they can't really have a response to it
Yeah.
because this is rooted in the way the people have always practiced agriculture.
Mm,
It's scientific, is socially alive, it's political,
mhm,
it is building connection between farmers, between territories, between countries, between communities. It's such an example of a resilient way of producing food in a way that you can be sure that no matter what happens, you're going to survive the poly crisis. Well, we're
mm,
really facing a
mm,
lot of challenges. Africa
mm.
is prone to flooding, to droughts, um, land grabbing. Our lands are being grabbed for
Yeah,
carbon farming,
yeah, left
for
and right.
carbon
Yeah.
credits and all that. And governments are
Mm,
applauding and selling off
mm,
in some cases up to 20%
mm,
of territory of a country is being taken away. Africa is really under a big assault. So
mm,
agroecology to the rescue, I would say. And, you know, um,
mm.
there's nothing as good as cultivating crops in a way that aligns with food sovereignty. You are right
Yeah.
to grow crops in a way that is most appropriate and the
Mm,
way that is culturally acceptable. And the crops that you know, the crops that are indigenous, these are the
mm.
crops that are climate smart.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
are not,
Mm,
they know the terrain, they know the soil,
mm,
they
mm,
know the hard situation they're
mm,
confronting, and they've
mm,
survived over millions, hundreds of
mm,
thousands of years.
mm.
This is the kind of um, practice that
Mm,
agroecology promotes. The
yeah.
fact it promotes local systems, local
Mm,
seeds,
mm,
meets local needs. And of course,
yeah,
when you meet local needs, you can also have extra for others to share.
yeah,
And it negates the fact that of artificiality. And to me,
yeah,
that is
exactly.
reclaiming our humanity and reclaiming, we're not just reclaiming our varieties, we're reclaiming who we are.
Yeah,
And it's not
exactly.
just in Africa, it's all across the world, especially in the global south. And
Yeah.
even in the global north, there's a global south in the global north, just like we have pockets of global north in the global south. So, politically speaking, this is an extremely important process to recover
Yeah.
our dignity,
Mm,
discover our food systems, and also to overcome the crisis to be resilient to the crisis that is coming.
mm,
Agroecology, as Lavia Campesina says, heal the soils and cools the planet. And I fully believe
yeah.
you know, when we go for climate negotiation meetings, all you can see that when you follow the process, almost all the investment is going into mitigation
Mm,
mechanisms.
mm,
And these ones are usually things produced in the laboratory,
mm,
and not in the field, not in the fields
mm,
of practice.
mm,
But
mm,
agroecology is something that should be at the center of climate action.
mm,
They blame agriculture. I read some documents that say agriculture produces about 40% or more of the carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. But what kind of agriculture is that?
yeah,
They will
yeah,
not mention.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
agroecology puts to a lie
Mm,
the fact that agriculture must be a villain, must be
mm,
a villain,
mm,
producing all this, producing the carbon that is
mm,
creating the problem in the atmosphere. Whereas
mm,
agroecology healthy soils absorb the carbon,
yeah.
just like healthy
Mm,
rivers and healthy ocean would do.
mm, mm. Excellent. Thank you very much. That was beautifully explained. Thank you, Nimo. Let's talk about the future. What policy changes or legal frameworks do you believe are most urgent to protect African food system?
Well, going to the future, we have to be deliberate. One, we have to decolonize our agricultural system.
Yeah.
We have to recognize that in Africa, the bulk of our food is produced by women. So whatever policy we have must center the role of women.
Should we send?
And the future must depend on also on ensuring that our youths are involved in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
In some places, agriculture is used in secondary high schools as a form of punishment. So if
Mm,
you've made any infringement, they send you to the farm. But no, the farm has to be attractive. And that means there must be good rural infrastructure.
mm,
And of course, innovative nature of our youth must be supported.
mm,
Youth have a lot of ideas, and these
mm,
ideas are not destructive. They're
mm,
ideas that would help to build a system that would
mm.
carry on with what they've learned from their ancestors, what they've
Yeah.
learned from their parents, and what is really working in the current system. So this is, I believe that going forward, we really need to regain our dignity by reviewing all the current policies, ensuring that there's more emphasis in supporting our local farmers.
Mm.
In Nigeria, before the structural adjustment programs came in the 80s and early 90s, there were sufficient extension officers who were really
Mm.
working to maintain local varieties and to increase productivity by supporting the farmers. Now
Yeah.
it's 1 to 10,000, one extension officer to 10,000 farmers.
Mm.
That's it's like saying there's no extension
Yeah.
service.
Mm.
Nobody's helping anybody. So it's an area that needs real investment,
I totally
that
agree with you.
farmers are
Mm.
supported, and and of course agroecology should be left, right, and center.
Mm.
And look, we are out to defend our system, policies, policies that looks at the interest of the continent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
I think this is yeah,
I mean, the
yes, go ahead.
extension agents, I totally agree with you. We need them in abundance, but we need also to really work on these extension agents so that they do understand uh,
Yes,
the rural
of
farming
course.
system, and also they have to have respect. You know, once they go to these universities and learn this and that, they think that they are superior than farmers, and mostly they create
Yeah.
problems. If you had one message for African governments on right now on GMOs and food sovereignty, what would it be?
I would say that they should open their eyes, both physically and metaphorically,
Hmm.
to see that Africa would not be liberated or independent until we have full sovereignty. And that is what I would say. Then it would be to let's sit back and unpack this concept.
Mm. Yeah, the unpacking is very much important because I hear that even the African Development Bank talks about food sovereignty. But for
Oh
them,
my goodness.
food sovereignty is producing, chemicals, agrochemicals inside the continent, GMOs inside the continent, market-based agriculture and all that. Great revolution, but done from the inside. So I agree with you. We need to define, unpack what we mean by food sovereignty.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So finally, what gives you hope in this struggle, and how can listeners support your work or learn more about HOMEF?
I'm so glad that you came to this question, but what gives me hope? Because sometimes, people, when I say I'm hopeful, they say no, hope is not a strategy, but hope is a big strategy. If you don't have hope and you are hopeless,
Yeah,
then you are finished.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
at Health of Mother Foundation, uh, we work to uncover the roots of the crisis in
Mm,
various levels.
mm,
We're asking the question, why are people hungry?
mm,
Not counting how many people are hungry.
mm,
In fact, when people say that Africa has a youth bulge, there are so many youths on the continent, we ask the question, where are the elders? Why
mm,
don't the youths become elders? If
mm,
you answer those questions, it helps. Anybody who
mm,
has solution to that would be that's a big help to us, to help
mm,
us
mm,
analyze and unpack these issues that
mm,
the colonial system, coloniality, and all this the invasion of our food, destruction of our food system is limiting life expectancy on the continent.
mm,
Is and people are being forced to eat things that don't support their lives. So I believe that one of the things that we believe we must do is um, to invest more in propagating our culture in the way it affects our food system, telling more stories about our foods,
mhm,
and bringing back the idea of sharing of foods. And for support for HOMEF, of course, I believe the first one of the things, because one of the other things we do is we're collecting as much, trying to learn as much as possible. And that
mhm,
is why it's so great for us to be part of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, because we
mm,
get to share, we get to learn a lot.
mm.
Learning, people, let's be generous with the knowledge that we have. Let's be
Exactly. Yeah.
generous with the resources we produce.
Mm,
Let's
mm,
share our story. Let's
mm,
find ways. Like you having this podcast. I mean, this is a
mm,
beautiful platform. Let's
Mm,
share our stories and let's get to know our commonalities. And where there are
mm,
differences, let's find out why are these differences,
yeah.
where things are not moving well, we can always stop back. Because no matter how far you go in the wrong direction, you will never get to the right destination.
Thank you so much, Nemo, for your clarity and courage and wisdom. It's been an honor to share this space with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Million. It's been a beautiful, beautiful day looking at trees through the windows and having this conversation with you.